Welcome back. Welcome back. Good evening again. This is Jason Hall with Team Home Loans, the co-host, filling in tonight for our host, Kyle Whissel, who's taking care of a sick, pregnant wife who's due any day. And we wish him and Brittany the best with the soon-to-be daughter coming any day. So, in studios with me, Joe Corbisiero, part of the Whissel team, one of the top agents on the team. Welcome again, Joe.
Thank you, Jason.
And also, let's see if I can get my drum roll button here. In studio with me on at least the radio for the first time. I had her on the TV show.
Yeah.
We have Carolyn Konecki, and I'm going to mess this up again, Cavignac and Associates. Is that better?
That's perfect.
All right. So let's talk insurance. Let's talk a little about your company. I know during the break we were saying one of the neat things are you guys are a local San Diego-based company.
Correct. We've been around since 1992.
All right. So that's a huge advantage for a lot of us listening. We like to do business with people here local that we can sit down. You know, I hate calling and talking to somebody in the Philippines or somewhere that
Right.
Doesn't understand me or somewhere completely different. Kind of makes you think of the State Farm commercial. They're calling this guy at 4 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning, and this guy's wherever in the world they're talking about. But you guys are right here local.
Right here, based out of downtown.
Okay.
Started as primarily a commercial agency, and it still is one of the largest commercial agencies in San Diego. It's probably, we think it's the largest independent agent where we're not affiliated. We're not a national firm, and there's been a lot of acquisitions in San Diego in the last couple of years.
Okay.
Of independents that have been acquired by other companies.
And then your specialty on the team is?
Personal lines. So the focus of my practice is the high net worth and affluent personal lines. So I do insurance for individuals as opposed to businesses. So I will handle a person's personal homes, their collections like art, jewelry, wine, cars, and their regular autos, their umbrella, watercraft, earthquake, any tangible asset that's owned by them personally, rental properties, all of that.
Okay, great. And how long have you been doing insurance, Carolyn?
13 years.
All right. So what did you do before? I shouldn't even ask. I'll ask you later.
You mean when she was a baby?
Yeah, when she was a baby. Yeah. See, Joe's over here already flirting, right? Carolyn's been married 30 years to her husband, John, who I know really
Love
well.
the attitude. I mean, this is awesome.
She's a great attitude, great individual.
Great voice.
Great voice.
Thank you.
And we really had fun on the Craig Soin American Dream TV show. So that was enjoyable for the both of us. And one of the neat things, Joe and Brian, since Brian's in studio, and Paul, is Carolyn and her husband had planned a trip down to the Virgin Islands to rent a yacht, 3-cabin yacht. 3 couples are going. One of the couples couldn't go. And so John calls me up and says, Mr. Hall, would you like to go to the Virgin Islands with Carolyn and I? I'm like, are you kidding me? When?
Twist my arm.
Yeah. I'm like, let me make sure I can block that off, make that happen. So we're going to be leaving early next month here in May,
Really?
heading down to the Virgin Islands. So we're going to, rent a yacht down there for a week and just hop from island to island to island.
How beautiful.
And
It's going to be fabulous.
yeah, just have a ton of fun. And, prior to that, we're going to spend some time in Puerto Rico, hang out there in the Virgin Islands. So we're going to be down there. I think it's 11, 12 days.
Yeah.
Something like that.
10 days,
yeah. It's going to be a fun trip that we're getting a chance
Sounds
to
like it's gonna
enjoy
be amazing.
with the couple. So let's talk about insurance. What are some things that we all need to know that we think our insurance is currently covering that's not when it comes to personal line insurance?
Okay. So there's a couple of things that people think are included in their policies that are not. Earthquake coverage, flood coverage are some of the biggies. And the other one is coverage for their valuables. So a lot of times people think that everything in their house is automatically covered by their homeowner's policy. But every single homeowner's policy has a sublimit for theft. So if someone breaks into your house or just comes into your house because maybe they're the cleaning service that you have come in every other week or so, and they take your jewelry, there's going to be a sublimit unless you have it scheduled separately.
So what do you mean by that, sublimit? Talk more basic for
Okay, so let's say you have $20,000 worth of jewelry and one of them is like your $10,000 wedding ring, okay? And that the stone falls out or the maid takes it or something like that. You go to your homeowner's insurance and you say, I lost my $10,000 ring. I need to make a claim. And they say, you only have a $1,500 sublimit. Oh, and you have a $1,000 deductible. So those are
So here's $500.
Here you go.
Yeah, good luck.
Right? Yeah, and we're going to raise your stuff.
Right.
So that's what you're saying. So most people don't even realize what built into their insurance when they call up and get an insurance quote from most insurance people anywhere in the world, they're going to give them the cheapest quote, and therefore you're probably getting the cheapest insurance.
Generally, yes. I mean, some carriers are what are known as captives, which means they only sell one particular line, like State Farm and Farmers and Allstate. That's all they can represent. Others, like me, are independent. We represent multiple lines of insurance. So if someone calls me up, we take the high-level holistic view of what all do you have, how does this work, and I work on really complicated transactions where there are multiple properties in multiple states. I can even do insurance in certain foreign countries. And so we package the whole thing, and we bring in other things, risks, like maybe there's a kidnap and ransom exposure. Do you travel a lot internationally? Are your kids overseas at school? So we talk about all.
So you're
of the
asking
risks.
a bunch of other questions
Yes.
other than, hey, here's
many
my
square feet?
address, here's
Right.
my square feet, what's my policy? And I think that's what most people do when it comes to insurance. And I think that's great that you're asking additional questions so that you make sure your client's completely covered,
Right.
and knows the risks if they decide not to get the full coverage.
Exactly. We at least let them know. Some people choose to self-insure. I have a client who has a very large jewelry collection, and she totally self-insures it. But she knows the risk that she's taking, and she's been educated on it and has plenty of money, so that's fine.
What's her address?
And then I have other people. I have one client that her entire schedule is about an inch thick. Every single item, including little $100 items, are scheduled, and she's comfortable with that.
Wow.
So it works,
Okay.
both ways.
All right. Well, since we've got one of the top agents in town here in Joe Corbisiero, Joe, what questions as a real estate agent do you have for Carolyn when it comes to home insurance?
Yeah, when it happens about claims, is it easy to get your money back, or what's the process? Let's say something happened. You just mentioned,
Of water loss.
Yeah, something
Okay.
like that.
So the most common claims are water loss, meaning pipe bursts or dishwasher leaks or something like that. And those are all covered. There's a peril called sudden discharge of water. So imagine it's exactly that, gushing water. And the typical homeowner's policy does not cover whatever it is that broke. So you have that little $5 valve on your toilet that broke. They're not paying for that $5 valve. Oh, darn. But they're going to pay for all the ensuing damage.
Okay.
So all the walls, the floors, the furniture, anything that's damaged, clothing, whatever gets affected. So they'll come in and they'll do the emergency dry out services. They'll pull out the old wet, whatever, drywall, carpet.
Drywall, whatever it is.
Exactly. And then they replace it. And they, in my world, it's what's known as line of sight. So if your walls are painted custom colors and you have to paint this wall because it's damaged, but it tracks all the way through the house to a part that's undamaged, they'll still paint that too. And the same thing, they'll replace the flooring.
Great.
So they pay for all of the damages to bring you back to where you need to be before. And that claim will be on your record for 3 years, and it will count against you for 3 years. Most carriers will not take people with multiple claims. So especially if they're the same type, if you have 2 water claims, because statistically, if you have bad pipes and you have a water claim and you have another water claim,
It's probably going to have another water
you're going to have a third water claim unless you repipe.
Therefore, no one wants to insure you. So that makes sense.
That makes sense. Yeah,
Yes.
that makes sense. I've got another question. We used to, in the real estate part of it, we used to ask what's called the clue report.
Yes.
Now it's been a little complicated. The seller has to order directly. So how do you do, around it? How do you now manage it?
Well, we run a clue report on every property.
Okay,
So we know the losses.
perfect.
The loss
So
history.
in case, let's say, John Doe is selling his house, I'm representing John Doe, so we can just ask you directly to provide with a clue report?
Yes, absolutely. It's going to be something that the buyer, but it's linked to the address. So the buyer typically asks for it. But now, it's interesting to note here, some carriers charge the buyer for the loss. Most of my carriers don't. Why should you inherit someone else's loss?
That's right.
And so, because that's pretty unfair. I've had people actually denied insurance because the previous owner had a loss.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. Is that 'cause-
Well, unless it's like piping, like you said, and there's been water leak or two.
Right.
I can understand an insurance company not want to do that. Again, you're listening to 1170 AM, The Answer in the KCBQ studios, and this is Whissel Wednesday. In studio with me today is Joe Corbisiero with Whissel Realty and Carolyn Konecki with Cavignac and Associates. I think that's twice in a row I've said that right, Carolyn.
Good job.
So, all right.
great
So
job.
some of the things that you don't that aren't typically covered in your home policy unless you work with an expert like Carolyn to make sure you're covered. You're saying, so there's identity theft limits on most of our policies out there. Some of the equipment. You had wildfire protection.
So those are the things actually that are typically included in a policy that people may not be aware of. So most policies these days include some coverage for identity theft. 1 out of 11 people are victims of identity theft. So if you are, you should check with your homeowner's agent because you probably have some coverage and can get reimbursed for losses.
Wow.
They can even pay for your notary fees and running new reports.
Okay.
Wildfire protections is very interesting. For homes that are replacement cost $1 million or more, a lot of the carriers will include free wildfire protection. Well, they'll come out in the event of a wildfire and spray down the house with a foam or a fire retardant to prevent it from catching on fire.
Okay. Well, that's nice to know.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
I
yeah.
had a client in Malibu, and in 2007, they saved his 11,000 square foot house.
Man, I can imagine rebuilding that. I know that's one of the big things here, too. So
Can I give you a call once a week?
Yes, absolutely.
We're going to break right now. Again, you're listening to Whissel Wednesday. We'll be right back with Joe Corbisiero with Whissel Realty.